Live from the Boston Media Center, the race for the Senate. A Decision 2020 debate. Senator Ed Markey.
My fights are the fights of Massachusetts today.
Congressman Joe Kennedy.
Our country deserves better.
Face to face and on the record about the issues that matter to you. From COVID and classrooms.
No justice! No peace!
To police reform and immigration. It's their chance to speak directly to you. Now, your moderator, NBC 10 Boston anchor, LaToya Edwards.
Welcome, everyone, to this U.S. Democratic Senate primary debate. We're at the NBCU Boston Media Center, home of NBC 10, NECN, Telemundo Boston, and NBC Sports Boston. We'd like to thank our guests for taking part in tonight's event. We'll start with the incumbent, Senator Ed Markey. He served Massachusetts in the U.S. Senate since 2013. Before that, he served Massachusetts' 7th District in the House of Representatives since 1976. We also welcome Congressman Joe Kennedy. He served Massachusetts' 4th District since 2013. Before that, he served as an assistant district attorney in the Cape and the Islands DA's office and the Middlesex DA's office. Now, we are following social distancing guidelines, as you can see during tonight's debate. Everyone, including the candidates, are spread out more than 6 feet apart, and our panelists are not in the studio with us. Here they are. They're in different locations in the Boston Media Center. They are Grace Gomez, news anchor for Telemundo Boston, Tim Caputo, news anchor for NECN, and Allison King, political reporter for NBC 10 Boston. Gentlemen, before we get started, here are the rules for tonight's debate. Both candidates will get 1 minute for questions directed to the both of them. Rebuttals will be at my discretion. They'll get 45 seconds for individual questions with a 30-second rebuttal with a rapid fire round at the end of the evening, and they'll both have 1 minute for closing statements. Remember, you can join in right now on this debate. Use the hashtag #MASENDebate. A coin toss determined that Senator Markey would get the first question. So, Senator, over the past 2 weeks, the campaign has turned ugly. The Kennedy campaign called off a fundraiser when the Broadway stars who were scheduled to appear canceled after they were called out on Twitter by your supporters. The Kennedy campaign says some of those stars were subjected to cyberbullying. I saw some of those tweets, and they were pretty nasty. What steps have you or your campaign taken to put an end to this?
Well, you know, a lot of young people put up the pictures of themselves when they were in theater in high school to talk about the issues that they felt were important to those Broadway stars. And for them, they wanted to tell all of those people that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had endorsed me, that I was the co-sponsor of the Green New Deal with Alexandria, and that had caused a revolution focused upon climate change in our country. It was talking about the issues. It was raising this concern about our planet, and my partnership with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in not just creating a moment, but a movement which has changed the way in which our entire country views the issue of the climate crisis.
Senator, thank you for that. Congressman Kennedy, you have 30 seconds to respond.
LaToya, thank you, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I don't think that that's what happened at all. There were supporters of mine that tried to put together an event that were targeted. One of Senator Markey's supporters literally tweeted that bullying works. And look, this is an issue not just because of what we saw at this event, but it's unfortunately been a bit of a history with regards to supporters of mine in this race. Senator Markey's supporters have targeted Sheriff Steve Tompkins, one of the highest profile black elected officials in the state. They've recently gone after 4 of my Hispanic colleagues in the House of Representatives.
All right, Congressman, that's
well.
time. But we want to now turn to you here. Congressman Kennedy, whether you like the tactics or not, all of the Broadway stars backed out after they learned more about who you were challenging. Is the issue here less about cyberbullying than about lukewarm support for your campaign among young progressives?
No, not at all. Look, I'm proud of the support that we have from young progressives, and I'm proud of the support that we've had from the beginning of this race. That's why I got in this race, because I believe more than anything, young progressives believe in change, and they know that we need stronger leadership to deliver it. Look, we cannot go back to a broken system. Excuse me. Our normal, that was broken. Normal was an essential worker that couldn't earn a living wage. It was 150,000 lives lost to COVID-19. It was a country that let George Floyd die. It was politicians that went off to Washington and thought they could legislate from afar, telling their communities back home what was best for them, rather than asking what they can do to make sure that they can reach their dreams. That's why I'm running, to make sure that we have leaders that are connected to our communities, that are going to fight for them every single day. And that's why we need change.
All right, Congressman, we want to let the senator respond and weigh in on this. Senator.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the Sunrise Movement, which is the heart of the Green New Deal, they have rallied to my side. There are young people in college and high school and middle schools just rallying all across the state, all across the country. But on top of that, the League of Conservation Voters, the Sierra Club, the Human Rights Campaign, the LGBTQ groups have sided with me. They've endorsed me in this race, as has NARAL, as has Planned Parenthood. So this is a movement built around the progressive groups in our country, but led by young people
Senator,
who are rallying because of this climate crisis.
Senator, thank you for that. We want to just let the congressman address this one more time here.
Thank you, LaToya. Senator, of course those organizations have endorsed you. They endorse incumbents. Almost all of them have endorsed me in every race that I've had too. You know who has also endorsed me in this race? Over 60 different labor unions, not national organizations, local ones who know us both and know us best. Why? Because they know that in the fight for economic dignity, in the fight to try to make sure that every family is going to be able to keep food on their plate and a roof over their head, they know that I will be their champion. That's why I'm in this race, and that's why we need change.
Well, let me just say, there's a reason why
15 seconds.
the Massachusetts teachers have endorsed me. That's 150,000 teachers across the state because they know I side with those young people getting the education they need. And the same thing is true for 32BJ. Those are the janitors in our state. Those are the frontline workers who need the help the most.
All right.
They are backing me in this race.
All right, Senator, we know you both are passionate about this. Let's move on now to my colleague, Allison King of NBC 10 Boston, has the next round of questions. Allison.
Thank you, LaToya. Congressman Kennedy, you just touched on this briefly, but you have been asked the question many times. Why are you in this race? For months, you've provided a variety of answers, but it's still unclear to some. So to clarify, why did you decide to target the U.S. Senator who has authored one of the boldest Democratic proposals this past year, the Green New Deal, and who is considered one of the Senate's most reliable progressive voters? You have 45 seconds.
Thank you, Allison. Because I believe that there's more to being a senator, particularly a senator from Massachusetts, than just the bills that you file and the votes that you cast. And look, let's look at that 2018 election cycle to begin with. This is when Republicans had a House, a Senate, and a presidency. We're cramming through Supreme Court justices. That wasn't a massive time for major progressive legislating. So what else could you do? I went around the country trying to campaign for other Democrats so that we could regain control and pass a progressive agenda. Senator Markey, by his own campaign submission, went nowhere. But he wasn't at home either. You talk to folks around Western Massachusetts, you talk to folks across communities like Roxbury and Dorchester and Mattapan and Springfield and Worcester, and he wasn't there. There is so much more that is needed at this moment than just somebody that files the right bill and says that that's enough.
Okay, thank you, Congressman. Senator Markey, do you care to respond to that?
Yeah, when I see injustice, I fight to fix it. I just don't talk about change. I lead to change. That's been my career. That's the Green New Deal. That's Medicare for all. That's ensuring that we do the research on gun safety in our country. That's my law. That's breaking up the telecommunications monopolies and making sure the internet is on the desk of every student, rich and poor, in our country. And it's why Rachel
Senator
Rollins,
Markey,
the district attorney of Boston, has
Senator,
endorsed
your time
me,
is up,
in addition to Nika Elegato, Cory Booker, and many other progressive leaders in our state.
Your time is up, Senator, but I do have a question for you. You've been in Washington for more than 4 decades. People know your name and your record. Massachusetts incumbents typically don't face serious primaries. Why is it that you are perceived to be vulnerable enough for Joe Kennedy and some others who dropped out of the race to try to push you out?
Well, I can only run as a Markey from Malden. My father drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company. I drove a truck to work my way as a commuter through Boston College. I was the first in my family to go to college. I had the student loans that I had to carry on my back in the same way I know the kids today all across the Commonwealth have to do the same thing.
But why do you think you were seen as vulnerable?
Well, again, he has every right to run, but I'm running on my record of who I am and my record of leadership in passing the big bills, in making the big changes in our country that are necessary. And I think that my record is what is right now leading to this incredible momentum, which has been building behind my campaign because I'm running on the issues important to the people in the Commonwealth.
Congressman Kennedy, I'm going to let you just respond to that.
Thank you, and thank you, Ellison. Senator Markey's record, I think, deserves examination. Senator Markey opposed the integration of the Boston public schools. Senator Markey voted for mass incarceration. Senator Markey joined with Republican immigration extremists to try to fight back against an Obama administration trying to decrease the number of detention beds. Senator Markey supported supported a constitutional amendment to ban access to abortion.
Okay,
Senator Markey voted for the Iraq War. That is all part of Senator Markey's record, and that is up for debate. And I think when it comes to the question of who's progressive in this race, that record deserves to be
Thank you very much, Congressman. I'm going to send it back to LaToya.
Well, now, Senator Markey, I know you want to jump in here.
I really should be allowed to jump in at this point.
I'll give you 15 seconds to respond, but we got to get to the issue that everybody, and we're going to come back to what you're talking about. 15 seconds, really quick.
Yeah, well, Congressman Kennedy is attacking me on a vote where he cast the same vote on the same policy.
Not true.
And so give me a break, Congressman. You took the same position. Where we differ is on PROMESA, where you voted to hollow out Puerto Rico, cut their education, their health care, their housing, and other programs.
You
took a vote that harmed Puerto Rico in a distinctly serious way.
I see you both shaking your head. Hold it right there. I see the passion, the energy. We got to get to the coronavirus, and I promise you, we'll get back to that and have some space. Okay, so let's turn now to our attention to everybody cares about the coronavirus pandemic. My colleague Grace Gomez of Telemundo Boston has a question on that topic. Grace.
And thank you, LaToya. Gentlemen, good evening. I'm going to ask you both this question in Spanish and in English. Es la pregunta que cada padre de familia se está haciendo ahora mismo. Si es que enviaran a sus hijos a las escuelas en septiembre, ¿cuál es la opinión sobre el regreso a las clases en el otoño y cuál es su consejo para los padres de familia? It's a question on every parent's mind right now, whether to send their child back to school in September. Where do you stand on the fall semester and what's your advice for parents? Congressman Kennedy, we'll start with you. You have 60 seconds.
Grace, thank you. Y muchas gracias. Mire, como padre de dos hijos, uno de 4 y uno de 2 años, yo no mandaría a mis niños a la escuela en ese momento, porque yo todavía tengo muchas preocupaciones sobre la seguridad de nuestras escuelas para asegurar que ellos pueden estar ahí seguramente y sanamente. I still have deep reservations about sending my kids to school, and as of now, I would not do it. Look, our schools need more assistance. That's why I've voted for and support the HEROES Act, which includes $3 trillion of support, including nearly $900 billion for states and municipalities, to do things like hire more teachers, provide access to more sanitation measures and resources, to make sure that we actually can create a safe place for our kids. Because until we do, I think every parent is going to feel conflicted, as I do.
Thank you, Congressman. Now, Senator Markey, to you, you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, only if it's safe. And that safety is going to be determined by science. And the science isn't a date that you pick to send kids back. It's the data. And right now, Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, they're blocking any help that would go back to the community so that they don't have to lay off teachers, so that they have the testing, they have the contact tracing, they have the personal protective equipment to be able to say it's safe. And moreover, and it's my legislation, that is a law that puts the internet on the desk of every child in our country. That's my law right now. And I'm going to be fighting for $4 billion additional dollars to make sure kids get it at home. Because right now, unbelievably, 12 million American kids do not have the internet at home. And that's going to lead to a homework gap, that's going to lead to a learning gap, that's going to lead to an opportunity gap for those kids for the rest of their lives. So I'm going to be leading that fight on the floor of the Senate over the next 2 weeks to make sure they get all of the funding they need for the teachers and for the kids.
Thank you. LaToya, we'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Grace. We talked about schools for a moment. Gentlemen, this question is for the both of you, and it's regarding a letter grade here. Senator Markey, how do you rate the job that Congressman Kennedy has done handling the coronavirus crisis for his constituents in terms of fighting for the safety and well-being of frontline workers, stimulus money, and economic stability? Reminder, 1 minute here. Senator.
Again, the congressman has worked very hard for his constituents. And I've worked very hard for my constituents. I fought successfully to add a program for $250 billion in order to make sure that there would be funding for the gig workers in our state. we have 250,000 gig workers who otherwise would get no unemployment insurance whatsoever. I fought very hard and successfully to make sure that we would have $150 billion for the hospitals in the state of Massachusetts. I fought successfully partnering with Elizabeth Warren and the Alaska Republican delegation to add $300 million for disaster relief for the fishermen in our state. So on issue after issue, I have stood up and fought and delivered for the people of Massachusetts in the coronavirus packages thus far. And my job will be on the Senate floor in an epic battle with Mitch McConnell and the Republicans over the next 2 weeks to make sure the additional help goes in, that the unemployment insurance and the health care help is there for everyone in our state.
All right, Senator. So you didn't give a grade. We'll get Congressman Kennedy right now. Now, Congressman Kennedy, how do you rate this job Senator Markey has done handling the coronavirus crisis for his constituents?
Look, I think Senator Markey has been fighting as well. I think we both have, and I don't doubt Senator Markey's concern for our constituents. We both have seen the enormous impact that this has had on people across our Commonwealth. I will say that in the midst of the coronavirus, I actually suspended my political campaign. We actually raised over $100,000 to support local organizations because we knew the need was so great to try to provide meals and additional resources. The senator didn't. So I think there's an awful lot more that can be done, again, than just the votes that you cast and the bills that you file. And I will say, LaToya, I think Senator has worked very hard for his constituents. But let's be clear, the reason why we've been able to deliver more for our communities is because we have Democrats in control of the House of Representatives. That enabled us to set the framework of this debate because Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump knew that they had to go through Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats. I was out there campaigning to make sure that we could, in fact, flip that House last cycle. Senator Markey literally went nowhere. This matters not because you collect frequent flyer miles, but because if you believe in the change that we need, you have to go out there and fight for it.
All right. We want to switch our focus right now. We want to turn to the topic of police reform and social justice. Both of you have gone on the record to say Black Lives Matter. Let's look specifically, though, at your actions. Give us specifics on what you've done and what you will do to show that Black Lives Matter. This is for both of you. 60 seconds. First to you, Senator Markey.
Thank you. Back when I was a state legislator in the 70s, there was no black Senate seat in Massachusetts. And I had to make a decision to take on the Democratic state leadership to make sure there was a black Senate seat. And I did. And it hurt my career. But that's why Bill Owens, who became that first black state senator from Massachusetts, is endorsing me, and Doris Bunty, who led the effort in the House of Representatives. That was a tough fight. I'm partnering right now with Elizabeth Warren and with Ayanna Pressley to repeal qualified immunity, which is a protection which police officers receive even if they have wrongly murdered an innocent individual. That's what we saw in the Floyd case. And I'm partnering with Ayanna to make sure that we have transit fees that are free in Boston. Social justice is making sure that people, $30,000 or less, 30% of their income goes to paying for transportation costs. So in each and every one of those issues, and partnering with Cory Booker on his overhaul, the Next Step Back, I'm his only co-sponsor to overhaul the criminal justice system in our country.
That's time. Let's bring in Congressman Kennedy. Same question for you. Give us specifics on what you've done and what you will do to show that Black Lives Matter.
LaToya, when I was asked to give the response to Donald Trump's first State of the Union with that national platform, I was one of the first Democrats to declare that Black Lives Matter. This has been at the heart of my work from the very first moments in Congress, from the first bills I passed around educational opportunities to my work with mental health care and maternal health care. I was one of the founding members of the Black Maternal Mortality Caucus in Washington. I've co-sponsored legislation and support legislation, voted for legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the bill that was led by the Congressional Black Caucus that sets the framework for the beginning of this work. I have authored legislation with Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic Caucus chairman, to make it easier to hold police officers accountable. And I have worked hand in hand with a family from Massachusetts that knows this pain directly, the DJ Henry family. Dan and Angela have become dear friends because of the work that I've done with them after their son was senselessly murdered by a police officer in Westchester County, New York, nearly 10 years ago.
Congressman, thank you. I want to push back a little bit. Let's just get real for a moment. There are people, Black Lives Matter supporters, there are Black and brown people watching right now, Black mothers like me who are looking and saying, in this time of social justice, representation, optics matter. And so it's more than, you clearly have laid out your records, but they see two white men vying for the U.S. Senate seat to represent Massachusetts. And some may ask, well, listen, you don't understand maybe the worry that your husband will not return home each and every day that eats at you. You don't understand the worry that your daughter may be the next Breonna Taylor shot dead inside of her own home. You don't understand the black trans worry about killings that are not being solved right now, the community there. Why is your voice the right voice in this moment? What do you say to that community? Senator, I'll have you speak directly to the community right now first.
Yeah, thank you. We're at a moment when justice is needed. The soul of our country is on fire. And we need justice. Justice for black and brown families. We need criminal justice overhaul. We need to overhaul our police system. We need environmental justice, educational justice, economic justice, healthcare justice. That's Medicare for all. That's making sure that the child care, the sick leave is there for the essential workers who are clearly those who are saving all of the rest of us from having to go out every single day. They can't Zoom to work. We have to help them as they get the help they need.
To keep with time, Congressman, we'll give you the same time.
Thank you, Latoya. First off, I'd like to say those concerns are right. Of course, experience matters. And let's be very clear, I think as you pointed out, we are both two privileged white men, and I certainly, extremely privileged. The question then is, how over the course of our campaigns and our service, can we demonstrate the fact that we can, one, acknowledge our difference and fight to actually make sure that those voices are heard. That, in the words of my colleague Ayanna Pressley, that those closest to the pain have a chance and a seat at that table to actually inform that policy. The fact that for
Congressman, I'm sorry,
yes.
we're at time. I know you're both so passionate. We could talk about it all day.
We could.
So we're going to continue the conversation, but expound on it a bit with my colleague Tim Caputo of NECN. He has a question on police reform. This one for Congressman Kennedy.
Thank you, Latoya. Good evening, gentlemen. Congressman Kennedy, you just mentioned Congressman Jeffries and the bill that he put forward. He put that bill forward in 2015, months after Eric Garner's death in New York City. It's a bill banning chokeholds by police, co-sponsored at the time by 21 Democrats in the House. Similar bills introduced in 2018, again last year in 2019. Congressman Kennedy, you didn't co-sponsor any of those bills until last month. What do you see now, this summer, that you didn't see when Garner was choked and killed by police 5-6 years ago? You have 45 seconds.
So, and Tim, it's a great question. The bill that I referenced with Hakeem Jeffries is a bill about lowering the standard for civil rights abuses, which is a different issue. But regardless, I stand by my record, certainly when it comes to holding police officers accountable. As I said, I've worked hand in glove with the Henry family, trying to make sure that there was, in fact, justice for DJ after he was killed in a police-involved shooting by a police officer, in Westchester County, New York. My work on criminal justice reform is work that I've been proud of, and proud of the work that I've been able to do with Mr. Jeffries, with members of the Black Caucus, and as well. The fact that I've been able to be endorsed by people like Congressman John Lewis, who served 25 years with Senator Markey.
Congressman, thank you. That is your time. Senator Markey, I want to give you an opportunity to weigh in on this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we need fundamental criminal justice overhaul. That's why Cory Booker and I have introduced the Next Step Act, and that just changes sentencing, how we treat prisoners in prison, and then afterwards. We have to do that. Congressman Kennedy, back in 2015, he actually voted to send military weapons to the streets of our country for the police in our country. Now he says that he doesn't take that position any longer. But from my perspective, the question is that conviction or is it political convenience which has led to the change of the position of the congressman?
Senator Markey, you're going to stay with you here for a second, and I want to read you a quote. The quote is, "You might be known for some things in your time in office, Senator. Racial justice and criminal justice is not one of them." Your opponent said that to you just last month. And we look back on your congressional record, struggled to find any police reform initiative that you specifically have championed. You also opposed busing to desegregate Boston public schools, something the congressman already mentioned tonight. Would you say you're proud of your record on racial and criminal justice?
I'm very proud of my record. And that's why, again, Rachel Rollins, District Attorney of Boston, has endorsed me, Nika Elegado. It's why Dan Rivera, the mayor of Lawrence, has endorsed me in this race. And it's why, again, Bill Owens, who was the original black state senator from Massachusetts, I stood up and risked my career in order to back him and that effort to have a black Senate seat in Massachusetts. So on all of those issues, and today, the fight to repeal qualified immunity, which is something that Ayanna is leading in the House, I'm leading with Elizabeth Warren in the Senate, in order to make sure that we give justice to families in our country. But we also have to overhaul the sentencing guidelines for crack cocaine versus powdered cocaine. We have
Senator,
to make sure
thank you. That is
that
your
we
time.
have-
Congressman
that
Kennedy,
we
I
have-
see that you are raising your hand. You want to answer. You could this one and the previous one if you'd like. Respond to both.
So, Tim, thank you. A couple of things just to clarify the record. Senator Markey's attack on me in this one, Senator Markey voted to create the 1033 program that he now criticizes me for voting. He voted to create it. And look, these allegations here, this is why people get discouraged with politics and why they want change. Because the bottom line here is, while Senator Markey is saying that he was there advocating for the first African-American state senator, he was advocating to continue to keep against the busing and the integration of Boston public schools. He rails against mass incarceration at this point, or 3 strikes, but he voted for mass incarceration and still to this day has yet to apologize for that vote.
Congressman, thank you. That is your time for that answer. LaToya?
Tim,
By
thank
the way,
you.
I just have to say, I did not vote.
Senator-
I did not vote to militarize the streets of the country.
Senator,
Congressman Kennedy did.
thank you
I
so
did
much.
not cast that vote.
Senator,
That just is not true.
I know,
It did not happen.
Thank you very much for your passion on this topic. We have a question from a viewer right now on criminal justice reform. Her name is Susan Phillips, and she wrote, quote, "Ask them what they plan to do about all of the defund the police movement." Senator Markey, do you support defunding police departments?
I believe that it is absolutely imperative that we just reimagine what we are doing in our country. We need more money for healthcare, for education. We need more money to heal our country and not to imprison our country. We have 5% of the world's population, and we have 1/4 of all the prisoners in the world are in prison in the United States. We're 5% of the world's population. 1 in 3 women in the world are behind bars in the United States. So we just have to change our system. We don't need more law enforcement. We need more prevention. We need more health care. We need more education. We need more job training in our country. We just have to change the framework which we have. We owe an apology to a whole generation of African American young men because we have not provided them with the resources they need in order to maximize their God-given abilities. And that is our responsibility in the years ahead, to make sure that we just dismantle the existing economic system, criminal justice system we have in our country, to make sure that it works for those people.
Senator, thank you very much. Congressman, same question to you. You get 1 minute as well. Do you support defunding police departments?
Look, I think we have to completely reimagine how we police in this country. And one of my major areas of focus has been a structural overhaul to our mental health care system, because I saw how this country criminalizes mental behavioral health and substance use disorder. LaToya, the 2 largest providers of mental health care in this country are the jails in Los Angeles and Chicago. You talk to the sheriffs around our state, those are the folks that run our House of Correction, our jails. They'll tell you that on any given night, between 80 and 90% of the incarcerated individuals are suffering from substance use disorder or mental illness. We literally have created a healthcare system that says we don't know where else people should go, and so we lock them up. I was at a homeless camp that is a permanent camp right off of Route 2 the other day in Arlington. A young man there had had a heart attack on Thursday. He was back in that camp on Saturday morning because he said that was the only place that he felt comfortable to be. What an indictment on our system. That's where the focus needs to be, caring for our people.
Congressman, thank you. I just want to note that both of you said reimagine, not defund. So that's the note taken away from this. All right, we're going to take a quick 60-second break. There's still so much more to get to on issues important to you and your family, including immigration reform. Plus, we're taking a look at their records very closely, as well as their views on climate change. And we'll have some rapid fire questions. Plus, grab your phone right now, open up your camera, hold it up to your screen for this QR code to learn more about the candidates and their views. It'll take you to our website, NBC10Boston.com. We are back for you in 1 minute.
It's on our minds, too. Our families, friends, jobs, even school. How do we get back out there and stay safe and healthy?
At NBC 10 Boston, we all understand the importance of fact-based, clear information. It's how we decide what to do next and how to move forward.
We're focused on the facts because reliable information will get us through this.
That's what you can expect from a trusted news source.
That's what you can expect from us on NBC 10 Boston tonight, every night at 11. NBC 10 Boston, NECN, and Telemundo Boston are supporting our schools through our distance learning campaign, getting our students the tools they need to learn remotely while classrooms are closed.
From now through August, we will be collecting laptops, tablets, phones, and donations to provide these critical supplies to students who need them most.
Join us in the NBC Universal 2020 Supporting Our Schools Distance Learning campaign.
For information or to donate, visit NBC10Boston.com/supporting-our-schools.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Massachusetts Democratic Senate primary debate. I'm Latoya Edwards. Much more to get to with our guests, Senator Ed Markey and Congressman Joe Kennedy, as both men hope to persuade you to vote for them on primary day, which is Tuesday, September 1st, which is just over 5 weeks away. And we're going to shift gears now to the topic of immigration. First question from Grace Gomez.
Thank you, Latoya. Gentlemen, this question is again for both of you. I'll start with Congressman Kennedy, and I'm going to ask both in Spanish and in English. Las personas que se benefician del estatus de protección temporal o conocido como TPS, así como los Dreamers, están básicamente colgando de un hilo. Pagan sus impuestos, tienen permisos de trabajo, muchos son dueños de negocios aquí a nivel local y constantemente tienen que renovar su estatus para permanecer en este país. ¿Puede hacer usted esta noche un compromiso claro sobre su futuro y de ser así, cómo lo lograría? Recipients of Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, as well as Dreamers, are hanging really by a thread here in the United States. They pay their taxes, they have a work permit, most of them are business owners here in Massachusetts, and they most constantly renew their status to stay in this country. Congressman Kennedy, can you make a clear commitment tonight to them about their future? And if so, how are you going to do it? You have 60 seconds.
Grace, muchísimas gracias. Miren, usted tiene razón y esto es alguna de las razones por cómo yo he enfocado en reforma integral inmigratoria durante toda mi carrera en Washington. This is one of the reasons why I focused on comprehensive immigration reform in Washington, because we need a system that actually reflects our values. Look, we came close back in 2013. When President Obama actually put out those principles, when the Senate had a veto-proof majority, and we couldn't get there in the House. And it's one of the reasons why I've campaigned so hard to try to actually provide that change that we need in order to push these changes through. It needs to be a priority of of President Biden. And if I am elected to the Senate, I will ensure that this is going to be one of the priorities, and I will not rest until we are able to actually deliver on that change. Now, look, in the midst of that debate, Senator Markey joined with Republicans and immigration extremists to actually siding with detention beds rather than our immigrants in our community.
Thank you very much.
That's what needs to change.
Senator Markey, same question to you. You have 60 seconds.
Again, Carson, just give me a break. You cast the same exact vote for the same policies.
True. It is not true.
You just keep saying things that are just not true.
It's not true, Senator.
The issue you're raising is very important. Whether it's DACA, TPS, immigration reform in general, that has to be the top of the agenda. We have 11 million people in this country. All of them next year should be placed on a pathway to citizenship. That's my goal. If I go back to the United States Senate, I'm going to fight to make sure that every one of those 11 million people, not just DACA, not just TPS, they have to be there. They have to get the protections which they deserve. But we have to have a comprehensive immigration policy. We just can't have ICE out there as a police force trying to grab people in the middle of the night out of the top of a triple-decker in Lawrence. We have to let them know that they are safe. And that is why the Massachusetts Immigration and Refugee Agency made me their,
Thank you, Senator.
their man of the year 2 years ago because they know the priority that I place
Thank you very much,
on this
Senator.
issue.
I do have to push back on this because the comprehensive immigration reform, as Congressman Kennedy mentioned, happened in 2013. Ever since then, I mean, the immigration community here hasn't had really anything solid. So instead of focusing on the immigration reform as a whole, what are you both going to do for the TPS and the Dreamers, who are really the only step that they need is to get the citizenship? They have everything else. What are you going to do for that, Congressman Kennedy?
Grace, in order to get there, we need change, because what we've seen is that Republicans aren't willing to do this. I engaged with Republican colleagues in negotiations over the 2 years ago, last cycle, to try to get this across the finish line. And those Republican members were played by Speaker Ryan and Republican leadership yet again. We need change to actually deliver on this change, because we've seen that Republicans aren't going to deliver on it. But then you need to have, that shouldn't be news to anybody. You got to go out there and fight for it. And I've been down to the border on multiple occasions.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Senator, you care to respond?
If I may.
Well, we're going to continue on this immigration topic, but we want to bring in my colleague Tim Caputo from the newsroom, and he has questions for both of you. Tim.
Immigration, because you've both been to our southern border. You've taken pictures there. You've seen it for your own eyes. The children in cages, the thousands of families that have been separated, and other stories obviously making the headlines these days. But right now, tonight, more than 300 children are still in ICE custody, away from their families, and while at these facilities at the risk of contracting COVID-19. Senator Markey, you mentioned it's top of agenda. What are you doing right now to end this and to prevent something like this from happening again?
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned my 3 trips to the border to see those kids in cages down on the border. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. We just got a reprieve by the Supreme Court on the DACA kids, but we now have to fumigate Donald Trump out of the White House. He is a racist president. He says he's going to make America great again, but he's actually just making America hate again, and he puts immigrants in the crosshairs so that hate comes out. We have to get rid of Mitch McConnell as the majority leader. And then next year, our agenda has to be top of the line. President Biden giving his inaugural address, first thing up to make sure that we have an immigration bill that gives a pathway to citizenship for every one of these individuals so they don't have to worry any longer. That has to be what we are doing in order to give those families hope right now. And I can tell you that I am going to fight, as I have been, every single day.
Senator, thank you. I want to get to Congressman Kennedy to respond to the same question to you, Congressman Kennedy. What's your plan?
Tim, a couple of things. One, I have to take issue. Senator Markey continues to try to muddy the waters so that he doesn't have to respond to his vote. He voted with Republican extremists against President Obama and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus to try to actually provide more detention beds to house immigrants. That's his vote. He's trying to muddy that with a government funding vote that happened later that every Democrat voted for. Those are not the same thing. 1. 2, it's why we need more than just somebody that votes the right way. I've been down to the southern border multiple times. The difference is that knowing that Donald Trump wasn't going to solve this problem, we raised nearly $250,000 to provide funding for legal services agencies to sue the federal government to release those kids and unite those families. Because as a representative, you can do more than just sign a letter and try to convince Stephen Miller that he, in fact, is wrong on immigration. It's why I joined with Pramila Jayapal to actually provide legal counsel and a bill out of the House this week to people held in immigration detention.
Congressman,
it's why there's so much more that we can do than just vote the right way.
And again, I just have to come back on this just to clarify
this comes down to the
time.
election.
Congressman Kennedy cast the vote on the same policies, on the same language, and he voted for it. But moreover, just so I can make this clear, even last August, when Trump was deporting kids with cancer, who are immigrants in our country from Massachusetts and other states, I organized with Ayanna Pressley the movement to stop that. And we forced Donald Trump to back down because it's wrong to take children and adults who are sick and who are being given treatment in our country and to have the deportation police come in and to grab them and to take them out of our country. I took them on. I fought Trump. He backed down. And it's very rare that Trump backs down. But he had to back down because of the leadership that I was providing with Ayanna Pressley.
Senator, okay, let's get to the elephant in the room. You've been talking about it. Let's just dig deep into it right now. Senator Markey, this week, members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus slammed you as being the only progressive to vote against a 2013 bill that preserved a quota for immigrant detention beds in ICE facilities. How do you square that vote with what you said about immigration on the campaign trail and, frankly, what you've said this evening, Senator?
And again, I'll say it once again. Congressman Kennedy is attacking me on a vote on the very same language, the very same policy that Congressman Kennedy voted for himself. Later on that year, he did the same thing. That's not actually an issue where we disagree. We actually disagree on PROMESA, which is a vote which Congressman Kennedy cast twice, which is hollowing out Puerto Rico, its educational system, its healthcare system, its housing system. The University of Puerto Rico may go under. And Congressman Kennedy had a decision to make. And twice he voted for the bondholders to receive their payment and not for the people of Puerto Rico. He now says that that's not his position. But again, that's just a change, in my opinion, not of conviction, but of political convenience.
Thank you, Senator Markey. Let's get the Congressman 30 seconds to respond to you.
Sure.
Folks, if there was ever an example of why we need change in Washington, it is the exchange that you just heard. It is the politics of the past, and it does not work. Senator Markey joined. There's a reason why 4 members of the Hispanic Caucus blasted Senator Markey, because I voted with them and he didn't. Because it speaks now about the values of immigration, yet had a chance to stand with the immigrant community and chose not to, chose to end up providing more resources to a Donald Trump presidency to detain more immigrants. That's not right. And I've stood in strongly against it from day one.
What Congressman Kennedy is saying is just not accurate. He did the exact same thing.
Well, Congressman, can you respond directly to that for a moment? Because the criticism is fair. Your camp is saying one thing about Markey in this vote. Markey's camp is saying you also voted for this legislation. Can you answer that? It included the exact same quota.
Yes.
Is that correct? And why'd you take the vote?
So, Latoya, thank you. So let's get this clear on the record for everybody. There was a vote that came up about immigration bed detention policy, a standalone vote. Senator Markey joined with a handful of conservative Democrats and Republicans. And keep in mind, this was, as Grace pointed out, in the midst of a discussion around comprehensive immigration reform. He stood with Republicans against the Obama administration. Obama gave instructions that he would veto this vote, or at least railed against this vote. And he voted with Republicans against Obama. Because of that vote, because it passed, it got wrapped up in an overall funding bill to fund government months later. And every Democrat, including Barack Obama, every Democrat voted for it and Barack Obama signed it. But it got put in there because it passed, because people like Senator Markey voted for it to begin with.
Let's have Senator Markey, 30
I
seconds.
just deserve to be able to come back to this because he voted for it in a big package. I voted for it in a big bill as well. But if he wanted to vote against it, a year later, when there wasn't going to be relief for DACA kids, I voted against the entire appropriations bill. I voted against it. And if that was his conviction, he should have voted no. But he didn't. He voted yes in the very same language as in there. And again, just give me a break, Congressman. That's just absolutely not
Senator,
true.
The only thing I'd point out, there were multiple members of the Hispanic Caucus that criticized you, not me. Your campaign then went after them individually after they criticized you. That's one, you could take it up with them. Two, the criticism, the fact that your campaign decided to go after them speaks volumes about the liability that you feel about this. And look, I understand why you would like to muddy the record here. You were in the midst of an overall discussion on comprehensive immigration reform. You were also in a tough Senate race. And so you took a vote that ended up not being the one that I think many of us believe in. You were the one member of the House delegation. You were the one member of the House delegation from Massachusetts that voted that way. The only one.
Congressman, thank you.
Again, I just have to clarify, just for the record, later on, same year, same language. But Congressman Kennedy voted for it in a big package as well. So ultimately, it's a non-issue. We voted for the same way, which is why we should be talking about PROMESA and what the congressman did to hollow out Puerto Rico because we have tens of thousands of people here in Massachusetts because of PROMESA and what it has done to Puerto Rico.
Well, Congressman, go ahead, touch briefly on Puerto Rico, 30 seconds.
PROMESA was a bill that has had devastating consequences in Puerto Rico. I followed the lead of one of our leaders in the House of Representatives, Nita Velázquez, who came to me directly and said it was either PROMESA or no help to Puerto Rico at all. That was the choice. I'm one of a very few Democratic colleagues that have signed onto a bill to actually push for amendments to PROMESA to ensure that the people of Puerto Rico get access to the services and resources that they need. And I've been leading the fight to ensure that there is equity with regards to healthcare funding and other overhauls for Puerto Rico.
We're going to have to hold it right here.
That's fine.
And Ashley, switch our focus. We appreciate the energy, but we want to talk about something differently. Allison King has the next questions. Allison.
And we're going to switch gears here. Congressman Kennedy, when you were at Stanford University, you joined the Kappa Alpha fraternity. This is a fraternity that has been called out over the decades for racist behavior. The spiritual leader of the fraternity was and continues to be Confederate Commander Robert E. Lee. Last August, a few weeks before announcing your U.S. Senate bid, you disaffiliated from Kappa Alpha. Why did you choose Kappa Alpha to begin with, and why didn't you disaffiliate in a much more public way a long time ago?
Allison, thank you. It's an important question. Look, candidly, I wish I had. But the reality is that I was, the chapter at Stanford had almost no relationship with the national organization and had none of the behaviors or traditions of that national organization. It was a diverse place with across race and color and creed and nationality. And what I learned about it in the time afterwards, clearly, has meant that my affiliation there was a mistake. And I've come out publicly and taken responsibility for that. Led a group of my colleagues and former classmates to disaffiliate. And since that, a number of others have too. The difference on this, Allison, is that I've taken responsibility for that action. And I wish I could go back and tell my 18-year-old me that that was going to be a mistake.
Okay, Congressman, I'm going to let Senator Markey touch on this. Weigh in, please.
Thank you. Well, I was a commuter to Boston College, so I don't really know anything about fraternities. But obviously, it's good that the congressman is answering questions about it, because I think it's important. In the same way it's important that he answer questions about his change on Medicare for all, on militarization of the streets, on working for District Attorney O'Keefe down on Cape Cod, on PROMESA, on marijuana, and here on KA. And the question in each one of these instances is the change because of conviction, or is it because of political convenience?
Okay, Senator, I'm going to give the congressman 10 seconds, Congressman, and then I've got a question for the senator.
Senator, when it comes to racial justice, I think as we've discussed tonight, it's hard to hear that criticism from you. Congressman John Lewis served with you for 25 years. He has endorsed me in this race. That says enough.
Okay, I'm now going to send it over to Senator Markey. Senator, you have been accused more than a few times over the years of spending more time in non-election years at your home in Chevy Chase, Maryland, than at your home in Malden. Just today, Congressman Kennedy accused you of absenteeism, which he says has diminished your effectiveness in the state. You said recently that you would provide the facts to clear up this controversy, but no one has seen this information. What are the results of your analysis?
Yeah, well, we are going to provide all of that information for.
But you've been saying that for months, Senator.
Well, no, that information is going to be provided.
In what form? Will it be your travel records or?
Yeah, my campaign is providing that information. It will be out there for the public to be able to see.
What has taken you so long to come?
Again, I just don't fight for Massachusetts. I deliver for Massachusetts. I'm able to take my leadership on the floor of the United States Senate and make sure that on climate change, on healthcare issues, on the question of
Senator,
gun safety
this is
in
about
our society,
your residency.
that I'm able to fight for and deliver. And that's why mayors, state representatives, state senators, and groups all across the Commonwealth have endorsed me in this race.
I'm going to let Congressman Kennedy take a shot at this.
Look, Allison, it clearly matters where an elected official resides and where you rest your head. But the reason why it matters is because, particularly now, we need to have elected officials that are, in fact, hearing the concerns across our country, hearing the concerns across our Commonwealth, and advocating for those voices. Because if things were going as well as people in Washington thought they were, we wouldn't be here. You have to be present to hear them. You have to go out and ask, not tell. You have to listen, not dictate. And that's why I got in this race. That is the change that we need.
Thank you.
That is what I will bring to the U.S. Senate.
And with that, I'm going to send it back to LaToya.
And again, I just want to say, I bring the kitchen table in Malden where I learned the lessons from my mother and father, my father a milkman, my mother a housewife. I bring those values to the floor of the United States Senate every single day. That's why I can see the families across the Commonwealth struggling to pay their bills right now. It's the same kind of struggle I saw my mother and father who were going through when they were trying to pay the bills for their 3 sons. And that's what I channel every single day on the floor of the United States Senate, fighting for every family.
All right, Senator, thank you. Congressman, I saw the eye roll. So let's just...
Look, I don't. Senator Markey's story is well known. The issue is not whether he went to Boston College or lived in Malden at one point. The issue is whether he is giving adequate representation and voice to people across our Commonwealth. And when I got in this race, I called around. I had no desire to go take on an entrenched incumbent and go create career suicide. But when I called around Western Massachusetts, when I called around to Eastern Massachusetts, when you went to communities like Chelsea, or Springfield, or Worcester, they'll tell you that they hadn't seen him. And that representation, as you talked about earlier, LaToya, it matters. Because what we are seeing more than anything at this moment is that our policies are not touching the people that need to make sure that we're being fought.
And again, I just have to say one more thing here. It's just important for me to say this. In the congressman's own congressional district, there are 9 in the state. Right now, 19 of the state representatives and state senators are endorsing me. Only 4 who know him best in his own congressional district are endorsing him. So from my perspective, the mayors, from Mayor Walsh, Mayor of Worcester, Mayor of Lawrence, of Brockton, they've all endorsed me because they know I stand up and fight for those communities. I have their back every single day on the floor of the United States Senate.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator, of course they endorsed you. Most of them endorsed you before I got in this race. And that's fine. That's the way this goes. This race is not going to be won on endorsements. It's going to be won because there's a candidate out here saying that there's challenges in our country. All right. And we have to do something about it.
Then don't say.
We have to do something about it.
Don't say.
And I'm going to bring that change.
Don't say that I'm not doing the job if those people with whom I'm partnering are endorsing me in this race. Because what you said earlier is just not accurate. Those people who you're referring to do have my back in this race because they know I have done the job. And they're saying to you, they are not with you, they are with me because I have been and continue to do the job for the people of
Endorsements don't win. Endorsements do not win Senate races.
Well, maybe not, but they're with me and they had a choice to go with you. If what you're saying is true and I wasn't doing the job. It's absolutely not true, and that's why they are with me in this race.
15 seconds.
10.
10. I'll take it. Look, this is why we need change, because it is a Washington thing to think that endorsement of elected officials means credibility and means success. That is the politics of the past, and it does not work. If you think this is the best we can be, then by all means, support my opponent. If you think we can do better, then
he can't say he travel around the state and no one said I was doing the job and then have everyone with whom I was working saying I'm doing the job. You just can't have it both ways.
Okay, we want to stick to time here, and we have a topic that I know you both love talking about, climate change. It's at the forefront of both of your campaigns. Congressman Kennedy, supporters of the Cape Wind Project say members of your extended family use their political power to help take down that project. What do you think about expanding wind energy off the Massachusetts coast?
One, I supported Cape Wind then and now. And 2, I have put the development of offshore wind at the forefront of my agenda. I actually just this past week got a bill put through the House of Representatives to establish a center of excellence for offshore wind. I've been working with Congressman David Cicilline of Rhode Island to help ensure robust opportunities of development for offshore wind across all of southeastern Massachusetts, because the very first project could create enough renewable energy to power 400,000 homes. But it's not just about one project. It's about the transformation that we can see for communities like Fall River and New Bedford, and the opportunities to build an entire new industry here in Massachusetts that can help power the future. I put my leadership on those issues literally up against anyone's.
All right, Senator Markey, we'll give you 30 seconds, a tight 30 seconds to respond, please.
Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I introduced the Green New Deal. It's created a revolution in the way people view these issues. The planet's running a fever. There are no emergency rooms for planets. So we need a massive deployment of wind and solar, all electric vehicles, new plug-in vehicles, storage battery technologies, energy conservation strategies all across this country to create millions of jobs, to save all of creation by engaging in massive job creation. And that is the leadership I've provided with AOC, and it also
Senator,
requires environmental justice
Senator,
for the poorest people who get exposed to the pollution.
Thank you.
That has
Senator
to
Markey,
end.
you co-author, of course, the Green New Deal. You just talked about that. We know you want the, we're going to move on to rapid fire because I want to make sure we have the time for that. We promised it. Quick questions, quick answers here. If you were Joe Biden, who would you pick for a running mate? I need a name. Congressman?
Ed Markey. And other than that, I'll defer to Joe Biden.
Senator Markey.
I would pick Elizabeth Warren, and apart from that, an African-American woman.
All right, Senator Markey, should face masks be mandatory in Massachusetts?
Yes, they should, until the coronavirus has ended.
Thank you. Congressman, should face masks be mandatory in Massachusetts?
Yes, and nationally.
All right, Congressman, should Governor Charlie Baker, Republican, get another term in office as governor?
That's up to the voters of Massachusetts.
What do you think?
I think that's up to the voters of Massachusetts.
Would you vote for him?
I think that depends on the field.
Okay. Senator Markey, Charlie Baker, should he get another term in office as a governor, Republican?
Again, let's see where we are in 2022. Just way too early at this point to be prognosticating that far ahead. Hard enough to predict 2020.
All right, the candidates now have 1 minute for closing statements. Senator Markey, you go first.
Thank you. The soul of our country is on fire. We need justice in our country. We need Medicare for all so that there's health care justice for everyone. We need the Green New Deal so that we have environmental justice for everyone. We need to overhaul our criminal justice system so that Black and brown families all across our country know that there will be justice for them. We need a pathway to citizenship for every immigrant in our country so that there is justice for them. We have to overhaul our sick care system. We have to overhaul our child care system so there's justice for every family. Martin Luther King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. All of our hands have to be on that arc to bend it towards justice. We need to do that now. We can do it.
All right.
Si se puede.
Thank you so much.
I ask for your vote.
Thank you very much. Congressman Kennedy?
Thank you, Latoya. Latoya, I've spent the last several weeks crisscrossing the state, listening to the concerns of people across our Commonwealth. To a restaurant owner in Springfield who literally cut a hole in her wall so that she could start a new takeout business. To fishermen from Gloucester to New Bedford whose livelihood is on the line yet again. To an immigrant restaurant owner from Grove Hall who pulled in his entire extended family to try to find a way to make ends meet. To healthcare workers in Lynn who even now are still struggling to get access to the PPE that they need, but they show up every single day for their community. Times are tough, but our people are resilient. And to a person, they are optimistic about our future. But they know that in order to deliver that future, we need change.
Congressman.
The politics of the past will not build our future. I ask for your vote on September 1st.
Congressman, thank you. And that concludes tonight's debate. We thank you so much, both Senator Ed Markey, Congressman Joe Kennedy. Remember, your vote is your voice. Primary day is Tuesday, September 1st. Please be safe and have a great night, everyone.